Dare to Understand series and the Indigenous Peoples Heritage Support Organization. The theme for this year's lecture is memorializing May 30th, 1650, Le Monde des Sottes, Leapers Hill, as Grenada's Indigenous Peoples Heritage and Remembrance Day. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Judy Antoine, and I am a director of the Institute of People's Enlightenment. I'm also a lecturer at T.M. Ralycia Community College and the director of the Ashanti Footprints, which is a youth cultural organization aimed at preserving our culture and guiding our youths in a positive direction. Thank you again for being here. I'm honored to be among just amazing people. Our featured speaker, Ralycia Andrews, and Chief Anette Sanford from Dominica, who is the first female Kalinago chief. So we acknowledge these people of Indigenous heritage on our panel, as well as Ms. Sharon Pascal, who is a teacher in Grenada, a founding member of the of the Indigenous Peoples Heritage Support Organization, and she's the Indigenous Peoples representative on the Grenada National Reparations Committee. So I'm really happy to be here with you, and I look forward to a fruitful afternoon with insights that would enhance our lives, and we may be able to enlighten some mind in whatever corner of the world that we are. Our featured lecture this evening is titled Portraiture and Indigeneity. How does art function as revisionism? And this will be given by Ms. Ralycia Andrews, who is a proud Garifuna, Vincentian, womanist, and cultural activist. She is the first graduate with a BA in Caribbean Studies from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. At this point, I also acknowledge Ms. Anne Worm, who is a member of the Caribbean Freedom Fighters, one of the sponsors of this evening's lecture. Our primary sponsor is the Indigenous Peoples Heritage Support Organization. And the goals of the Indigenous Peoples Heritage Support Organization are to engage students and the general public and contribute to the consciousness and safeguarding of the Indigenous Peoples heritage on this land that we share. The Indigenous Peoples Heritage Support Organization seeks to increase historical awareness, protection, and safeguarding of the tangible and intangible heritage of the Indigenous people of Grenada and the Caribbean region. Building community and national support for a declaration of May 30th as the National Indigenous Peoples Day in Grenada. And as I say this, I want to acknowledge the land from which this lecture has been initiated, Grenada, known as Kamahong by the Indigenous people of the land, as is evidenced today with Grenada's public park in Montrouge, St. George's, Kamahong Park. So we acknowledge that we are in a place where the memory of Indigenous people is still alive, Kamahong. And the legacy and heritage of the Indigenous people is also still alive in the region with the presence of Ralycia Andrews, Chief Anette Sanford, and Sharon Pascal. And at this time, I ask that we take a moment of silence to acknowledge the lives and the legacy of the indigenous people of this land and in the region. We also take a moment of silence to acknowledge Mr. Stephen Sharp. Stephen Sharp was a director of the Institute for People's Enlightenment, and he was the financial manager of two of the projects that were held by the IPE. These projects were the Lasajes Community Archaeology Project in Lasajes St. David, and this was connecting and seeking to preserve the indigenous people's heritage in Grenada through archaeology. The other was in Le Monde Sotes, or near Le Monde Sotes, Leapers Hill. And this project was called the Sotes Community Archaeology Project. So these projects employed young people from the various parishes, and our colleague and friend, Stephen Sharp, was very instrumental in the success of these projects. And as he's no longer with us, coming into this world in 1964, up to April 2024, we take a moment of silence for Stephen Sharp and for the indigenous people of the land, Kamahong, and throughout the region. Thank you. And it is with this meditation, we go into an adaptation of a poem by Lawrence Lieberman. This adaptation is done by Tesfa Aki Peterson. And here they stood, all arms twined in a last communal embrace. Some 40-odd survivors of the Carib tribe, men, women, small babes, and toddlers, in whatever proportion, no one knows the exact number, their French pursuers clamoring at their backs. Whatever fate beckoned, slaughter by musket fire, burnings at the stake, or most dreaded enslavement to those fish belly-faced Frenchmen, they chose all of one voice to howl into the trade winds, same winds as today, to die, and yes, to die out in on mystic, synchronized, bold leap of defiance to the naked rocks below. They knew their family, the multitude of spirits, the clan over a soul would fly up, and while their hand clasped lean bodies gored on the horned rock pinnacles below and soar into life beyond, a life forevermore remote from terrible nonsense, terrible nonsense. Terrible nonsense. But we have people who are righting the wrongs of this terrible nonsense. And this is one of the reasons why we are here today, which is on the path to Grenada acknowledging May 30th, Le Monde des Sauteurs, Leapers Hill, as a day of tribute to the indigenous people of Grenada. And we have our featured speaker, Ralycia Andrews, keeping the indigenous people and Garifuna people heritage alive. And we have Chief Anette Sanford, who is blazing a trail for us throughout the region, blazing a trail in Dominica. And we are very happy to have you both with us. and also Sharon Pascal, a born Grenadian who acknowledges her Indigenous heritage. We are very happy that she has committed to preserving the Indigenous people's heritage in Grenada through education.